A lot of people in our community are getting a little anxious because they are not seeing enough of the progress they thought they would have seen at this point. Let's not disappoint them, and let's not get to a place where voters in Georgia begin to second guess.
Okay, let me respond. I've got to go. Let me respond. There's a lot to respond to here. Let's get something straight. You shouldn't be disappointed. What I've done so far is more than anybody else has done this far. Okay, number one. Number two, I mean what I say when I say it. I mean what I say when I say it. I'm the only person who's ever run on 3 platforms that I was told could not possibly win the election, and I never ceased from it. One was on restoring the soul of this country because of what I saw happen in Charlottesville. That was it. No one else was talking about it. The words of presidents matter. Nobody else, no progressive, was talking about it. I did. My son Bo used to have an expression. He'd say, remember, Dad, home base. It ain't worth the job if I can't say what I believe. I didn't want to run this time. I ran this time because of the racist son of a gun who was president of the United States of America. That's why I ran. And you'll remember, a lot of you told me talking about the soul of America was going over people's heads. They didn't know what we're talking about. The words of a president matter. What a president says matters. And you've never seen me shy away. In the middle of the debate, I called him a racist. In the middle of the debate with him, I took on white supremacists. I'm the guy that took on every single time somebody was threatened in this country. The only white boy you know who did it, period, out there, every single time. So look, all I'm saying here is, guys and ladies, we're on the same exact page, We talked about closing the racial wealth gap. That's the single biggest thing I want to get done. It's the ultimate equalizer, no matter what else happens, because I plan on spending over $15 billion to provide for opportunity for young Black entrepreneurs to get them off the ground, Black farmers to be able to own their own property, young people being able to get their first $15,000 down payment on a home, making sure that they have an opportunity to gain wealth. We can do all the rest of this unless the Black community is able to make up the wealth gap, in my humble opinion, is real trouble. I support same-day registration. I'm the guy that extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years as a United States Senator. Before, Sherilyn, you were even involved. I got it. I started off, I'm much older than you. That's why I got involved in politics. The assault on the Black vote and voting rights across the nation has never been more ugly than it is today. You got to go all the way back to the original Jim Crow to get where this guy is. If in case you haven't looked, we have the largest voting right, Kristen, my operation, 1,000 lawyers, bigger than you or anybody else out there on voting rights. 1,000 in this campaign. Not a joke, 1,000. So I want you to know, I understand this. I know, look at the 38 cases that have been brought against my being president of the United States, all about phony actions. And so I think there should be same-day registration, automatic voting rights. I've been pushing, and I got a number of people that contribute significantly to the effort down in Florida to make sure that federal prisoners who serve their time have every single right restored to them. That's been my position before it was anybody else's position. I've been out pushing that. In addition to that, I think it's really important that no one goes to prison for a drug offense. Nobody. They go into rehabilitation. That's what we should be building, rehabilitation centers, not more prisons. I have a $20 billion effort that I'm proposing to get states to change their sentencing guidelines so that there is no more mandatory sentences across the board. In addition to that, we're talking about having diversity hiring in every agency. I promise you that is going to happen. We're just getting started here. Police reform, judicial reform. Look, You know, when I was, if you notice, when I was chairman of the Judiciary Committee and when I was advising the president, who did we get on the court? We got on a woman who worked for me, became a member of the Supreme Court. Another woman who was a leading Hispanic in America no one paid attention to is on the court. All the people that I pushed on the court have been really pro-civil rights judges across the board. And I, like you, the idea, Kristen, that everybody has to be a prosecutor. I'm a public defender. When I'm president of the United States of America, we're going to see to it that public defenders, federal defenders, get paid the same as federal prosecutors. So we can attract people. There's a whole range of things I guess I'm trying to say here. Look, the whole idea of equity is built into everything we've done. For example, I laid out my COVID team. Nobody's ever done this before. We're going to have Marcela Nunez Smith, but yeah, she is going to have one job. We have an equity task force. Her entire job is to deal with the inequity that exists because of racial discrimination. And Ms. Campbell, that's what this is all about, making sure that. You may remember, I'm the first person, black or white, who called attention to the fact that you were finding that there was the rate of people who were African Americans who were dying was 3 times that of white people. That's because a friend of mine, a white guy who happens to be, as you well know, Derek, the mayor of the city of Detroit, called me to tell me about it. I insisted that we keep a record on everything that happened since then. Guys, guess what I'm saying, guys, is, you know, I mean what I say. The hard part here is I'm going to have a lot of trouble. We're going to have a lot of trouble getting a lot of this done with this Congress. And so the question is, for example, you know, I'm going to be appointing at least, and I'm, you know, look, the reason I'm not telling you who the other black maybe cabinet positions I'm going to appoint are is because it will get out. And guess what? I can't defend them. They're going to be out there by themselves without any defense before they're named. They're going to get ripped to shreds. That's why I'm going to wait. You will be pleased, I believe. You will be pleased to see there'll be more African Americans in major positions within a cabinet in major spots and more Hispanics in major spots than ever in American history. That's going to happen. I promise you that. And the other thing is, for example, thus far, you know, for example, when we went ahead and we made sure that, you know, I have as, the Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen, but at number 2 is Wally Adeyemo, an African American, who is the number 2 guy with real authority at that department. Look underneath just what we're doing in addition to the people we've already named. You're going to see people, look, and, you know, Cecilia Rouse, Cece, she is a significant player. That's a serious position. But it's like when I named her, well, I don't know if that counts. I'm not so sure. Well, if it doesn't count for y'all, well, the hell with y'all. But because it's real, it's real. So all I'm saying is look at us, judge us based on what we do. You're going to see more coming your way. And not only that, within the White House as well. Cedric is the best. Cedric's been with me from the beginning. And Cedric is going to be overseeing a great deal of this, and not all his responsibility, but he's in every single meeting. He's an assistant to the president. He's in every single meeting in the White House, period. And so what we're going to be doing here is making sure that we have diverse hiring, not only and for the main cabinet position and the sub-cabinet positions, but down the line. It's going to make a big difference, and within the White House as well. Assistant to the president, there's only 6 of those slots. It matters. And by the way, I think you're going to see, I always kid Kamala by say this, but we're going to have more women than men, as it's looking like now. Okay, that's good because I'm surrounded by women smarter than me, starting off with my wife and my sister. But all kidding aside, this is going to be fully across the board. I'm going to keep the commitment that I said. And here's the thing. And Al, Reverend Al, I think you're right about this. It matters what a president says. And if you notice, I am not mincing my words when I speak about what I plan on doing as president of the United States. The only thing I'm not doing is I'm not engaging in retribution. I am not deciding that the way to win is to go after hate with hate. We have to convince people. We have to move them. And one of the overwhelming reasons I won, by the way, is because we took on racism in suburbia. White women overwhelmingly voted with me, and black women were the two places where it was overwhelming because we spoke to those concerns. And Vanita, you know what I'm talking about. You and I have talked before. I don't carry around a stamp on my head saying progressive and I'm AOC, but I have more of a record of getting things done in the United States Congress than anybody you know. Anybody you know of getting things accomplished. And that sounds so self-serving. I know that, but this is going to really be hard. This is going to really be hard. And let me conclude and turn it over to Kamala, who says, what the hell am I doing with this guy right now? But all kidding aside, I've known you my whole life, most of you. I've worked with you my whole life, most of you. I've been around doing this for a long time. I don't always get it right, but I always take responsibility. When I get it wrong, I acknowledge I got it wrong. But my overarching objective, if we cannot make significant progress on racial equity, this country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. Hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do in terms of raw numbers. We're going to have to be working with a whole group of people that, in fact, are the single most diverse democracy in American history and anywhere in the world. And we got to figure out how to unify this country. And you've been the leaders of being able to do that. Not a joke. And so there's some things that I'm going to be able to do by executive order. I'm not going to hesitate to do it. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do what used to, Vanita, you probably used to get angry with me during the debates when you'd have some of the people you were supporting say, on day one, I'm going to executive order to do this. Not within the constitutional authority. I am not going to violate the Constitution. Executive authority that my progressive friends talk about is way beyond the bounds. And as one of you said, maybe you, Reverend now, whether it's far left or far right, there is a Constitution. It's our only hope, our only hope. And the way to deal with it is where I have executive authority, I will use it to undo every single damn thing this guy has done by executive authority. But I'm not going to exercise executive authority where it's questioned, where I can come along and say, I can do away with assault weapons. There's no executive authority to do away with that. And no one's fought harder to get rid of assault weapons than me. But you can't do it by executive order. If you do that, next guy comes along and says, well, guess what? By executive order, I'm going to say everybody can own machine guns again. So we got to be careful. I know you all know this. I know you know it. And poor Kamala's heard me say this, and so has Cedric. I used to have a friend named Bob Gold, who was a really bright guy, not much of it. We went to school together. He wasn't an academic whiz, but bright as hell. And as he grew up, he became very successful. And I look at him, he died of a heart transplant. And about 20 years ago, I said to him, Bob, do you understand what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you understand me? He looked at me and said, Joe, I not only understand you, I overstand you. I'm sure you overstand me here. I desperately want to work with each of you. And I promise you, you will have access to us on a regular basis. And any emergency, you'll have access to us. We got to figure out a way how to regularly see to it we can do it as a group like we're doing now. Yeah. But I'm going to have an opportunity to be able to go down and answer your questions. And let me just say two more things. I like HR 1 and I like HR 4. But let me tell you something. We're going to have a hell of a hard time getting that passed through a Republican Senate. So the question is, what can we do in the meantime? I'm going to push him. I'm going to push them. And by the way, you know, the whole idea of gag conversations, that ends in my administration. There's no possibility you'll hear me talking about that. There's no possibility, but in what we're going to talk about is formally how we go about changing police misconduct, exposing it, keeping the records, the things I wanted to talk about with you, Ms. Campbell, where the whole idea of this task force and how we're going to deal with, you're going to see there's going to be at least 2 more major African-American women who are going to be appointed to this group that we're talking about in major positions in the White House and in the administration. You're also going to see that we're going to appoint, and I guess, let me conclude with this because I'm going to get in real trouble here in terms of my time. You know, I promise you, there will be an AG who has a significant record on dealing with civil rights. That's a guarantee. And each of the departments, you will see that as well. Vanita, you did a hell of a job in the Civil Rights Division. I really mean it. But you will see that is critical. And I think it matters how we start off. I'll conclude by saying one of the things I learned early on was that if in order to get things done in the Congress or the Senate, I start off by always going after my opponent's motive, I'm never going to get anything done. When I talk about dealing with the whole notion of what we're going to do in terms of infrastructure, I'm talking about it across the board. I'm not talking about just building highways. I'm talking to making sure that we have safe water. I'm going to make sure we have clean water. I'm going to make sure that we can breathe the clean air. I'm going to make, you realize all the folks who are getting clobbered by climate are all fence line communities, which you all come from. The Black community, the poor community. They're the ones who are dying overwhelmingly as a consequence of the impacts of climate change. They're the ones who are going to get first relief in my climate policies. Climate's about equity. It's not just about being able to breathe clean air. It's about equity. And we're going to build back in a way that we're going to create significant jobs for folks that in fact represent minority communities. Badly needed. And so I wish I had more time. Maybe we can have another one of these meetings before we actually get sworn in or in that area to go into, or maybe I respond to you in writing on a number of stuff you raised, but I will get back to you on the detail. But I promise you, Ms. Campbell, if you read the entirety of my position, you'll know that I've never waffled on what you're talking about. Never. And Kristen, you know my view on the judiciary, the Voting Rights Act, what we have to do to restore it. But we have to do it because we got to convince people. Absolute last point. One of the things I'd be concerned about, just as was pointed out to me that you wanted me to be concerned, Derek, I think it was you said it, about, you know, dealing with Vilsack as in terms of agriculture. Well, first of all, you can learn more about Vilsack's record, but my point is this. I don't think we should make that a big issue going into before January 5th when the election takes place down in Georgia. But I also don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves on dealing with police reform in that, because they've already labeled us as being defund the police. Anything we put forward in terms of the organizational structure to change policing, which I promise you will occur, promise you. Just think to yourself and give me advice whether we should do that before January 5th, because that's how they beat the living hell out of us across the country, saying that we're talking about defunding the police. We're not. We're talking about holding them accountable. We're talking about giving them money to do the right things. We're talking about putting more psychologists and psychiatrists on the telephones when the 911 calls through. We're talking about spending money to enable them to do their jobs better, not more with more force, with less force and more understanding. But I just raise it with you to think about. How much do we push between now and January 5th? We need those 2 seats about police reform, but I guarantee you there will be a full-blown commission. I guarantee you it's a major, major, major element. And as Reverend Al said, I was a pain in the ass to everybody except him when we did the commission before. I didn't think we went far enough. We can go very far. It matters how we do it. I think it matters how we do it. As I learned early on, it's all right to question your opponents, and you're not my opponents, any of you. It's always appropriate to question your opponent's judgment. It's never appropriate to question their motive, even if you know it. Because once you question their motive, you're done. You can't get anything done. By the way, let's talk about building highways. By the way, you're in the pocket of the cement industry. Now, what can we do together? Not a chance of getting anything done. So we can be tough, question judgment, not motive to get things done. Anyway, I'm going to yield to my vice president, and she can correct all the mistakes I made, but I want to talk to you, and with your permission, since I may not get you all together, to pick up the phone and call each of you individually over the next several weeks on the stuff each of you raised, because I care deeply about what you're talking about. Kamala?
Okay, I know you have to leave soon. Mark, you started the conversation expressing what the spirit of this conversation as the first of obviously an ongoing conversation, and the president-elect made that commitment just now. I heard him make that commitment. We all did. That this is going to be about access. It's going to be about consistency and collaboration. But you started saying, we will help you and we will hold you accountable. And that's right. And that's exactly what I think the president-elect has made clear that he and I understand is exactly how we should proceed. I will tell you, having spent, I'm in Delaware right now. I've practically moved to Delaware.
COVID.
And I have been.
Hotel DuPont is nice.
Yeah, and I have been spending a lot of time with the president-elect. And I will tell you something. I'm in those meetings. He and I have conversations when people are in the room and when nobody is in the room, when the cameras are on and when the cameras are off. I guarantee you, I have no question, nor should anyone, about the values and the principles that he brings to the discussion we've just had today. They are shared values and shared principles. And of course, we need to work out the details on the many points that were raised, that are raised in the context of what many have also pointed out and made clear. We didn't just lose ground over these last 4 years. There was extreme damage that occurred. And so what is in front of us is not only just simply making up ground. We need to leapfrog because we got pushed behind. So had we not experienced Donald Trump for 4 years, perhaps we would have made some progress. But we are now behind and we lost those years. And so it is going to require a concerted, a purposeful, and intentional approach to everything that we have discussed. We cannot afford to be incremental, and we have to be strategic, and we have to be smart, and we have to do it in a way that is, and I know this for speaking to the president-elect many times, that is not about the work that we do as an administration that's about a grand gesture, but instead about work that actually has an impact on the people. And so I appreciate the president-elect making the commitment that he has made for access and accountability. And of course, you should expect no less. But it is good to know that that's how we're going to proceed, and that at this early date, even before the inauguration, that this has happened. And so let's just come up with a plan and a roadmap for how we
Mark, you're going to be angry with me.
work done together.
I want to say one more thing. I am incredibly optimistic. Let me tell you why. I'm incredibly optimistic because society is changing. The Z generation and young millennials are changing. Now, you're not going to maybe agree with what I'm about to say, but take a look at what is happening. 15 years ago, could you turn on the television and see 3 or 4 out of 7 commercials be biracial commercials? What do you think, guys, huh? What do you think? You want to know where society's going? Watch entertainment, watch the profit motive. Why are these commercials, so many of them biracial? The young generation is changing. They're demanding more. They don't come with the baggage. Maybe 10, 20, 25% of them are pure racist, who knows? But the vast majority are not at all where when I was coming up. And the second thing that's changed is that you and I have talked about this, Al. Remember what Dr. King said when Bull Connor turned those hoses on those black women and sigged the dogs on them, ripping their clothes off, going in their Sunday go to church best and ripping the skin off of those kids? He said it was that was supposed to be the wooden stake in the heart of the civil rights movement. Remember what he said? He said that was most significant thing that happened in terms of freedom. What happened was we got the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act out of that. That young man who stood with a camera, a cell phone, like millions of people have, and stood there for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and took a picture of George Floyd asking for his mom, seeing his nose broken against that curb. All of a sudden, what happened? You saw a response around America and around the world. The world. Doesn't mean we don't have a big fight to go, but the first thing we had to do, and because of you, we get it done, is get rid of the racist Donald Trump. The first thing. The second thing we got to do is go back and appeal to those folks who some of that 70 million, not appeal by giving them anything, but appeal by moving hard toward what will benefit them as well. If you notice, whenever I make those speeches about civil rights and civil liberties and racial equality and economic equality, I make them to white audiences. I make them to white chambers of commerce. I make them to white audiences because I got to remind them, you want your community to look better, make sure black folks can own a house. You want to make sure your community does better, make sure everybody's making $15 an hour minimum. You want to make your community better, make sure everybody's making more money. It's never, 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 never hurt the wealthy. They always do better. But it gives the poor a way up and the middle class a shot. So I just think we have a way. I think the American public have had the blinders taken off with these 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, starting with number 1, COVID, number 2, dealing with the economic recession, number 3, with racial equality, and number 4, with global warming. All of a sudden they're going, holy God, I didn't know that happened. I didn't know that was the case. I didn't know that. We should take advantage.
But Mr. President-elect, if I could just say one thing, you are right about what has happened with young people. This is Cheryl and Eiffel. But this administration, Mr. Trump, even during his last campaign, has also unleashed something else very ugly and very steeped in this country. Yes, there are many people who were moved by what they saw when George Floyd was killed, but we also know that this president has tapped into a very ugly vein in this country, and it's not easy to put it back in the bottle. And so all I'll say is I agree with you 100%. I only want to say, again, just thinking about the need for momentum. And one of the things I love that I've seen so far already with you and the Vice President-elect is your momentum. Move fast and keep moving. That's what makes the Department of Justice so important, and the Attorney General, someone hitting the ground on day one who understands what to do, because we're going to need to move fast so that people can see that we can produce a country that has the kind of unity that you discussed, because there is a well out there of hate and violence that we also will ignore at our peril.
Let me tell you the big mistake I made. I'm in trouble, so much in trouble now, but look.
Yeah, you are.
You know, when Barack picked me as his vice president, and you all know I didn't want to do it, not because of Barack. I thought vice presidents were just, bodies in waiting. If something happened to the president, and I thought I could do more as a senator. But I made the same commitment to Kamala he made to me, first and last person in the room. And I was standing down on the platform 10 blocks from here, now 7 blocks from where I'm standing right now, in a movie theater I desegregated when I was a senior in high school, the Queen movie theater here. That's where we're in right now. And I was waiting, there were over 10,000 people down on the tracks waiting for a black man to come from Philadelphia on a train to pick me up to take me 127 miles to Washington to be sworn in as president and vice president. As I stood there, I walked up to the north end of the platform. There's no reason why any of you would know this. And I looked out over what they call the East Side and Southbridge. When I got back from law school, I had a job with a fancy law firm here, the oldest law firm in the state. My city's the only city in American history occupied by the military since Reconstruction, since the Civil War, only one. And so after 4 months of taking the bar and getting ready, I quit because I thought, I can't do this. And I became a public defender. That's why I went there. So I'm standing there thinking at the time, it hadn't dawned on me, waiting for a black man to come pick me up and all these people down there. And off to my left, the north, the east side, was completely leveled. I mean leveled. After everything was burned down, they leveled. All you could see was plots for 10 blocks all the way up to Rodney Square. Burned down. And across the 3rd Street Bridge, which is the river, the Christina River that runs through, same thing. They're built back up now and doing a lot better, still have more to go. So I called my kids up, and my son Bo was alive then, was Attorney General. My son Hunter was running the World Food Program USA, and my daughter's a social worker with a master's and works in the East Side in criminal justice reform. And I said, just hit me. And I told them what I'd seen. When I used to have to interview my clients down there, when I was a public defender in a holding cell, which was down in the basement of the police station, because so many were being arrested. And I thought it would never be a time when black and whites would get along ever again in Delaware. 60% of my city is black now, and we have the 8th largest black population in America in the state of Delaware. And I thought it would never work. I said, here I am. Don't tell me things can't change. Here I am waiting for a black man to take me to be sworn in as president and vice president of the United States. But you know what I underestimated? It's the point you're making, Sherilyn. I underestimated. You can never defeat hate. Hate only hides. And it hides under the rocks. And when you breathe oxygen under those rocks, it comes out. But that's why the words of a president matter. It matters that leaders step up in all communities and condemn prejudice. And I was reminded by a guy that helps me now, John Meacham. He wrote a book about the return of the soul of America. Ku Klux Klan was reinstituted in 1925, 4 and 5. You know why? Not for blacks, but for Irish Catholics like me. Too many Catholics. 30,000 people marched down Pennsylvania Avenue in hoods. Complete regalia, having nothing to do with African Americans. There's about too many Catholics. We're going to pollute the culture of America. And know what it took? It took every single major entity, starting with then a Republican president, speaking out against them. There were then 33 members of the House that were members of the Ku Klux Klan, 7 members of the Senate Ku Klux Klan. But everybody spoke up because a president started it. A president's words matter. And the condemnation has to be swift and consistent. And that's what you're going to see me talking about. You're going to see the vice president talking about, what all of you talk about. But that's why I've organized. You see how many black ministers have supported me? You know, Reverend Al, over 460 got together. But this, guess what? Same way I been able to put together Catholic priests now and Episcopal priest condemning racism. I met, and I'll end with this, I shouldn't have even started it. I got a call from the Pope, calling me to congratulate me. You know what he said? He said, the most important thing you have to do is deal with racism. Him. He put out an encyclical, which is a big deal in the Catholic Church, about ending racism and dealing with poverty. And he's willing to come and help on that score. That has never happened before. Things are changing around the world. I'm not making the Catholic Church the leader of this, but my point is things are changing. We just got to keep pounding and pounding and pounding and giving people a way out.
Mr. President, while I still have a job and you can't fire me from the one I have, I'm being told that you're over.
I know.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to make sure that you know that. And
yeah, 10 seconds, Mr. President. We take you up on your offer to meet with you again before January 20th. And we also take you up on your offer to meet with you regularly. We like to do it 4 times a year. We thank you for your time and candor and passion today. Thank you.
By the way, I may not be able to meet with you all as one group, but in the minimum, I'll call all of you and talk to each of the issues you have.
Okay.
Try to do it as
It'll
a
be
group.
consistent dialogue. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Madam Vice President.